All these people, you're gonna pull out a gun and you're gonna shoot an unarmed man.
20 seconds.
So what are you gonna do?
10.
You do know that we're not allowed to shoot people on sight anymore?
It was justified.
The soul of Detroit.
You are a violent man, my friend. You have left a trail of dead behind you.
ML Elric is coming home
I never forgot you.
to a place where his roots run deep.
You might know Marc Fellhauer.
We got dug coal together when we were 19.
But his only loyalty
You racking a load before I put a hole through you?
is justice.
What are you begging?
You'll pay to find that out. Never thought of myself as an angry man.
You're the angriest man I've ever known.
You asked it around, get your trigger out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric coming to you live from our exclusive, elaborate studios here at Red Shovel Network headquarters with my friend Marc Fellhauer and the angriest man alive, Shawn Windsor.
It changes every week, doesn't it?
And well, some things never change. There's a certain.
I mean, your description, at least you acknowledged me this week, so I guess that's
you're
that's
always.
improvement.
I carry you in my heart.
You're smiling, by the way. I like to see that, Mike.
Well, that's gas.
Is that
Just
gas?
Like a baby.
No, I
gets
thought it was because of the introduction,
Yeah.
which was fabulous, put together by the handsome Marc Fellhauer.
But that's why he's smiling, because he made his debut doing a voiceover in the intro, and he could not have been more proud of himself.
No. I think my debut is in the outro, isn't it? I think it is.
No, you have lines in both.
Oh, I was just going to say, stick around for the outro because we're introducing some exciting new voice talent. But I guess it was so good I didn't even recognize it myself.
By the way, have you been celebrating the Lions Super Bowl win Sunday night?
Yeah, I have.
It's all but done.
Because our buddy here texted me, Mark texted me Sunday night and said this was the most excited he'd been since 1991.
I think what I said it's my
most enjoyable.
It's my favorite team.
Yeah,
my
favorite team.
Lions team, like collection of players and coaches.
Which is the same thing,
and
right?
the way the season goes. Well, no, I mean because there's been better teams in this one.
But the future's never quite looked like this, and just the excitement that you had that I saw and felt from a lot of different people. The fact that you texted me Sunday night like that, right? Staying up past your bedtime?
Well, no.
But
I'm 47. I don't have a bedtime.
This is like the Super Bowl in that the Lions season ended with a win, right? Every other season ends with a loss, either in the regular season or the playoffs. So in that sense,
and on national television, it ended with a win, right? Which is
and how
unusual.
how they did it, and I don't know. This team just has an identity, which you don't really have that with the Lions.
even I wore a Lions hat 2 weeks ago and realized I looked silly and wouldn't wear it again. But I mean, even I'm like the Grinch. My heart grew a couple sizes this season when it comes to the Lions.
No, you're not allowed.
You've always loved the Lions. You just
he doesn't. He hates them.
No, he doesn't.
Yes,
He
he
put
does.
them aside for a while to protect himself, and I understand that.
No, my greatest fear is that I'm going to lose many hours of productive time on Sunday because I might actually have to watch these mutts because they may be fun to watch. I'll watch them as a fan of the sport, but I can't. It's going to take a while for me to cheer for the Lions. But that's not why we're here today. We're here because we have a special guest, Gregg Sutter, who is the leg man for Elmore Dutch Leonard. You're probably sitting here saying, "What is a leg man?"
I did.
You did. Well,
I said that. I said I didn't even know this thing existed.
It's a natural question. A leg man is something that's been employed by writers and at one time newspaper columnists throughout the history of our profession, where when you're trying to dig into something, you need somebody who can get to the bottom of it. People who can move and groove and get the lowdown. Maybe you can't get there yourself. Maybe you're working on something else. It becomes one of these relationships where there's tremendous collaboration, where in the same way that it takes multiple metals to make a really good sword, you have to have a partner who's keen, who's fearless, and who thinks like you do, knows what you're looking for, and can provide you some of that raw material you're looking for to take something that could be great and turn it into something tremendous. That's what Gregg has been doing for years. He's now working on a memoir about his relationship with Elmore Leonard and his work, and he joins us, I think, from Los Angeles. Although you're wearing sort of the Dallas fedora. That's kind of the pork pie hat of the South.
No, I'm in L.A.
L.A. Okay. Where else would you be when you're involved in intellectual property and some great stuff? And you heard us play Justified off the top of the show. We're going to talk to Gregg a little bit about his role in Justified, including something that some keen-eyed people may have caught. But all this is brought to us and possible because of the generosity of Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. And David Hall of Hall Financial will tell you in a little while how they can save you a lot of money and help you prepare for an easy retirement at a time right now we're all worried about our financial future. So thanks to Luke and David Hall. We'll talk about them in a minute. But Gregg is kind enough to join us. Gregg, tell us, where do you apply for a job like this? I imagine it's not something that you found on LinkedIn.
No, they didn't have any LinkedIn back in '79. It came out of being a super fan at a time when Dutch had not yet really been discovered nationally. I mean, we knew about him in Detroit. I mean, he was written up a lot, not a whole lot, but I mean, people knew who he was. But I had have a friend from Oakland. I went to Oakland University, and Russ Ryan, my good friend, he introduced me to hard-boiled American fiction and film noir. And those are not really exactly where Dutch was coming from, but we wanted to start a newsletter, a zine, as they called it back then, called Noir. And we thought, well, how are we going to distinguish ourselves in some way? And, let's do something a little different. So we decided we would do an interview. We would try to do an interview with Elmore Leonard. And he was in the book. We looked him up, lived in Birmingham, Merrillwood Apartments. Called him up. He said, sure, come on by. And we went by and got some books signed. And, he told us what he was working on, which at the time was City Primeval, which, is part of the new Justified series. And I told him, I said, look, I'm in the library a lot. If you ever need anything, let me know. And a couple years later, he called me and said, hey, you want to do some, some research for me? It was on stress, which was a program, an acronym for a Detroit police program called Stop the Robberies, Enjoy Safe Streets, which was essentially a decoy squad. There were a lot of atrocities, a lot of violence and murders and all that. And so that was what his character Walter Kuza had been in stress in the book Split Images, which was the first book I worked on in 1981.
So to give people a little context on stress, they took a very Raylan Givens approach to justice, which was often shoot first and let somebody else ask the questions. Because
that was a Coleman policy, wasn't it?
Well, stress was in the. It was very popular.
Was the mayor at the time. It was pre Coleman.
Oh, he got rid of it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the reasons he got elected was he ran against the police chief who oversaw stress and the Big Four, which was basically four of the biggest cops you could fit in a car driving around and dispensing street justice. And the only thing liberal about them was their liberal use of violence. But yeah. But to tell people a little bit about Elmore Leonard, it seems a shame that we might have to tell anybody about his background, but he was a local, I believe he was an ad copywriter who wanted to be a writer. He wrote serialized fictions, Western, probably not as much detective stuff until later, but he used to hang out with the homicide unit at the Detroit Police Department and absorb a lot of what he saw. And he's known for being one of the great dialogue writers and one of the great character writers. And the dialogue and the characters would drive the stories. And a lot of them are set in Detroit. And a lot of them are a lot in Florida as well and other places. And some of these exotic places, I believe you went to Cuba too, right, Gregg?
Yeah, sure did.
These portraits that he painted were things that may have first been seen by your eyes.
Well, like Cuba was a different story. He was pretty much done with the book when I went to Cuba. I kept bugging him. I'd say, "You want me to go to Cuba?" And he'd say, "No, it's not necessary." And it really wasn't. But then finally he said, "Yeah, you can go." And I like to say that I was researching the film that was never made, but I did go all over Cuba. But going back to your other question about Dutch, is that, Dutch was born in New Orleans. His father was a dealership. His father was an accountant, and then he became a dealership planner for General Motors. And they moved around the South to Dallas, Memphis, Oklahoma City, and finally settled permanently in Detroit in 1934. And so Dutch, for all intents and purposes, was a Detroiter. And he liked to act out movies. He loved Westerns, the early Westerns, he absorbed all that. And he went in the service. He was in the Seabees in the South Pacific, and came home, went to UAD, graduated, and then decided that he was going to go. He was going to go into business with his father. His father, Elmore John Leonard Sr., had gotten the ultimate gift that a good General Motors person would get, which was his own dealership. And it was in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And Dutch was going to go work for his dad. And he was going to go to, believe it or not, Dealer's Son School, which was a thing that they had back then, because that was sort of an apprentice son deal. And then in 49, his father had a cerebral hemorrhage and died. General Motors credit, GMAC would not. He wanted to keep it going with his brother-in-law, but General Motors said, "No, we don't think so." But somebody slipped him a card and said, "Here, why don't you go see if you can get a job with Campbell Ewald?" So he went there and worked his way up. Got on the Chevy account, the Chevrolet account, because it was up till the '55 Chevy, you couldn't call it Chevy. You had to call it Chevrolet, because they were so dowdy. But then finally, when they realized that the burgeoning youth generation was buying these cars, you could call it Chevy. So he did that, but at the same time, he decided he wanted to become a writer. And so he started, he wanted to break in. So he broke in writing Westerns. And, very influenced by Hemingway. And in the 50s, he would write for the Western Pulse. And he wrote, 30 stories in the 50s, including 310 to Yuma, which was his 10th story, and The Captives, which was filmed as The Tall T, both of which are considered to be probably top 100 Westerns. The 310 probably higher. And then he decided, I want to write something else, because the Western market had dried up. So he got his profit sharing bonus from General Motors, but his wife decided that she wanted a house in Birmingham. So they put the down payment on that instead of like using the money that he could use to write a non-Western. And so for the next 6 years, he kind of wandered in the Detroit desert. He worked for George Hurst of Hurst Floor Shifter fame, did all his ads for Hot Rod and Motor Trend, really cool ads, and wrote Encyclopedia Britannica films. And then finally his Western Hombre, his final Western novel from that period, hit. He got some money, got about 10 grand from the studio, and then started writing essentially he wrote The Big Bounce, which is a Michigan novel basically, and then he started developing properties that got him a Hollywood screenwriting career, a minor career doing that, and so he buzzed through Moonshine War, Valdez Is Coming, Mr. Majestic, Joe Kidd, and then finally he discovered George V. Higgins, The Friends of Eddie Coyle, and realized that, wow, this is how to write crime. So that's when he started writing crime novels set in Detroit, 52 pickup, swag.
Hey, Greg.
The ultimate Detroit story, the car salesman and the car thief that get together and develop the 10 commandments of success and happiness through armed robbery.
Hey, Greg, speaking of 310 to Yuma, which I remember, what I remember about that movie is Ben Foster, who I think I'd only seen in 6 Feet Under, and then to see him play a bad guy in that movie, it was just, and you're right, that's one of the best.
That was the remake.
Yeah, there's been two
you're
of
right.
them, yeah.
Sorry,
Glenn
that's
Ford
one of my.
was in the original.
The original was Glenn Ford.
That's right. But the remake to me
Van
is
Heflin.
one of the great underrated westerns in the last 30, 40 years. So, what are a couple of your favorite films of his books?
Well, Get Shorty, of course, because that was the film that really, cemented his reputation as a bankable writer for Hollywood, because his reputation had been tarnished by the movie Stick, which starred Burt Reynolds, who also directed it, and was horrible. It was like just all this aping around. And then
Greg, let me ask you this. To that point, was Elmore, was he involved in any, did he have any say over the movies and in the script, and were there adaptations that he just hated?
Oh yeah, the list is long. I mean, he would always say the book's on the shelf, and that would be his philosophical attitude about some of the horrible adaptations. But no, I mean, there were many stinkers. I mean, but there were a lot of, like I said, 310, Tall T, Hombre.
Out of Sight was pretty good.
I was gonna say, how about Jackie Brown?
Out of Sight would be my third. Would be another choice of mine. When he worked with talented screenwriters, or his talented screenwriters were hired, like Scott Frank, who wrote Get Shorty and Out of Sight. And of course, Tarantino, Jackie Brown.
Yeah, did he like Jackie Brown? Did you appreciate that?
He loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it. It was his favorite.
It's the tone, right? He's hard to capture.
He always said that Tarantino put the book on the screen, whatever that means. I mean, it's kind of a hard to explain thing, but that the essence of which is interesting, because I was just listening to Ben Mankiewicz's podcast, The Plot Thickens, about the final episode is about basically Jackie Brown. And Tarantino actually made that sort of as a homage to, it was based on an Elmore Leonard, but it was an homage to the blaxploitation films that Pam Grier starred in. So, it's kind of, but it just worked, and it was so exciting, that I remember being we were on in '97, we were on the set of that summer of Jackie Brown, the scene where the trunk scene where Chris Rock was the guy that was in the trunk. I may have that wrong, but anyway. And Tarantino was there, and he was like an excited kid. I mean, just seeing him, the way he directed, and it was like he wanted to jump in that trunk. He wanted to play all the parts. That was how I felt about him. But yeah, that was.
Didn't Samuel Jackson have some kind of rat tail in that movie? Or,
yeah, and Chris Rock was in it too. But why does Tarantino have rights to any other books? I mean, you would think of Elmore.
There's talk that he still has his fingers in 40 Lashes Less One, but he had what the progression was that when Tarantino was a teenager, he he shoplifted a copy of The Switch, which was another one of Dutch's 70s Detroit novels about a Bloomfield Hills tennis mom who's kidnapped and her husband doesn't want to pay the ransom, which the whole big thing about rude rude people that said ripped him off, but whatever. But anyway, he's ripped this book off. He got caught. Then he went back and stole it again. And that book had the characters of Louis Guerra and Ordell Robbie, who were reprised in Rum Punch. So after Reservoir Dogs, he wanted to make Rum Punch. He wanted to, he loved Elmore Leonard, and the agent said, "Well, okay, we'll keep you in mind." And then Pulp Fiction came out, and or they saw rushes of Pulp Fiction, and they realized, yeah, well, this guy's got it.
Yeah, perfect.
And then Harvey Weinstein at Miramax optioned several Elmore Leonards, including Killshot and Freaky Deaky, and and he didn't make any, because Tarantino basically he moves on from obsession to obsession or subject to subject, and so when he was done with Jackie Brown, he was basically done with Elmore Leonard. But he did have a role in this new one, this new series that's coming out this summer, I believe, in saying to Tim Oliphant, "Do it." Like that, kind of like putting it together, helping Tim. Well, Tim didn't need a lot of pushing, because I'm sure that I run ElmoreLeonard.com, and I put anything up or about Justified, and I get hundreds of likes. I mean, people are just still really enamored with the whole thing.
So one of the things I remember about Stick, and this was written by my friend and colleague Neil Rubin when the movie came out, he was doing a profile on Elmore Leonard and how his movies didn't translate to film so well. And one of the reasons I think that Get Shorty was such a great movie is when you read the book, it's almost exactly the movie, and it's tough to do better than Elmore Leonard. But Elmore Leonard had a poster from the movie in his basement, and the tagline for the movie was, "The only thing he couldn't stick to was the rules." And Neil caught that Dutch had said the only thing he couldn't stick to was the script.
That's right.
So he would get frustrated when you sell the rights. You kind of, turn your child loose out in the world. You don't know whether they're going to turn him into a princess or a prostitute. But Gregg, I want to talk about some of the adventures that you had with Elmore Leonard, some of the more extraordinary assignments you may have been sent on, and what it was like to be out there and kind of be his eyes and ears and report things back to the master.
Well, it's not as... Dutch had such a great imagination that he didn't need a lot. He didn't need me to go out and find him like stuff per se. It was pretty much to, record people, do location photography. But because he sort of respected my intuition, my sense of stuff that he would be interested in, that was really where I had a lot of fun. Like, I was down in the early 90s. I was down I wasn't living in Florida yet. I moved to Florida in 92 before I moved out here in 97. But I was like, everybody I knew was either a cop, a probation officer, a judge, all these people that I had, come to know through
you must
work.
have gotten a lot of trouble back then.
but then I met these local guys, these local lowlifes people that I could hang around with, and this one guy, Bernie Oliver, he said, he understood what I was doing. He says, well, there's going to be a Nazi Klan rally tomorrow in Palm Beach. So this was before the current period, when that was still, like
yeah, when they're good people on both sides, right?
Right. So so I had a video camera and I had, still camera and we went over there and it was just hilarious. It was like there were like about 18 Nazis. There were like Nazis, Klansmen wearing different colors, and a term I coined, which was bikers for racism, which was like the kind of filled out this small crew. There was 200 cops there working overtime. Why there were so few Nazis was because a lot of them got lost and couldn't get there in time.
So much for the master race.
It was just ridiculous, and they were all like skinhead type Nazis, and they had a little skinhead girlfriends. And there's one girl was saying, "Jimmy, you suck. Your band sucks." And it was like, I just thought he's got to use this. He's got to use this. He's writing Rum Punch at the time. And he kept resisting. I kept saying, look, watch the video. Look at this. This is so cool. And then I have this 3-time rule with Dutch, where I would introduce something. After 3 times, I'd give up. But he didn't say anything. And then he sent me the opening act, because he would always sort of, write an act, figure out put everybody in place, and then go from there. And in the opening act, I read it, and it's the opening scene is Ordell and Lewis at this rally.
Well, Al B. Sure is watching us on YouTube and says, "Cool guest today, guys." Absolutely. So Gregg, did this work where Dutch would say, "Hey, I want you to go look for this. I want you to send me some patois. I want you to get me some dialogue, paint a scene for me"? Or were you just kind of roving around and said, "Oh my God, the boss is going to love this. I'm going to send this back"?
Yeah. Well, dialogue, basically, I would never presume to say that I brought him dialogue, because that he knew, he could make people talk. Sometimes, there'd be an expression that, just the one, like I would, or it might be something I said. Like I said one time, I said, yeah, and I was at this, I was at Lily's in Hamtramck, and I said, yeah, and these girls were iggying around, and he used that. I mean, he would listen. He would just love to, be there, fly on the wall, and that's what that's what all the greats, dialogue writers did. Like Raymond Chandler. He used to go to the Hotel Barclay in downtown Los Angeles and just sit there and listen to people talk, and come up with little expressions. But that's how Dutch, like one time he got roped into going to a wine tasting party or something like that. And he just says to a guy, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And the guy said, "Well, I'm a Bull Seaman salesman." And, and you just knew, okay, that's going to be in the book.
Yeah.
He just loved the unusual. But I did a lot of library work at the beginning. A lot, like I would interview, I would go out and do interviews. Like I'd go to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, interview a pecan farmer, or, and then finally in 03 he decided, or 02 he decided to write another cop story. See, previous question you had asked, but in 78 the editor of the Detroit News Sunday magazine commissioned him to write a profile of the Detroit police felony homicide squad 7, and so he took a piece which normally, like when you're writing a feature, like you might get 3 or 4 days on it, and then you got to write it up and move on. Well, he spent months with these guys. They would call him up and say, "Hey, Dutch, we got a triple in Hamtramck," and he'd come in the middle of the night. And so that was the basis for City Primeval, High Noon in Detroit. Was just that experience.
Gregg, you mentioned that you did a lot of research and you would travel and interview people, but he was still writing when the internet came out. I mean, did the internet cut into your job at all?
Oh, the internet. I mean, it made it, I mean, it made it so easy. I mean, I would end up in the early 80s. Sometimes I would go up to Lansing to the state of Michigan library just to get one article on something. I mean, you'd had to go where and they had dialogue and in these different expensive, like online utilities. But I mean, you had to know what you were looking for. And then in the early 90s, they gave him a complimentary subscription to Nexus.
Oh yeah,
which I totally abused. I mean, it was sort of like this friend of mine, had been banned from this one all-you-can-eat restaurant because he really took them seriously.
You could eat a lot.
That was what Nexus was like for me. I mean, so then you could just go for hours and just they ended up like that was a limited program. But then I got Nexus and of course Google and everything else. And I mean we would be on the phone. I would be on the phone with him every day, and he would ask me a question. He would go like, "What's the best? What baseball bat has the best sweet spot if you want to like beat somebody to death?" And so, like, I would just be doing, and he'd always like say this to people like, "Yeah, Gregg is like kind of, I could hear him typing," and, so, so yeah, I mean, just, and at the end, the end of his life, toward the end, we were working on Blue Dreams, and, I would find stuff and I would fax it to him. He had a fax machine, but he didn't believe in computers. I mean, he just, one time I put my laptop on his lap to show him something, and he got, kind of like handed it back to me like I was putting like a dung pile on his back. He just hated, he just thought it was stupid. I mean, people would say, "Oh, you should get a word processor. You can write faster." And he thought that was ridiculous, Greg, the idea that somehow would be a plus to write faster.
Did he ever send you into a situation that turned out to be a little stickier than you anticipated, or a situation that he knew might be kind of dangerous? So he said, "Well, I could go, but I got Gregg on the payroll, so let's stick his neck out."
No, he would never. Well, first of all, he would never go anywhere because he didn't want to leave his desk. That was what this was all about. He had no problem doing research. He'd done a lot of research in his time, especially for the Westerns. I mean, book research and for Moonshine War, he went down to Kentucky with David E. Davis, the name you might know, who worked with him at Campbell Ewald to study moonshiners and stuff like that. But no, I mean, there was the danger. I got into a little bit of a problem in Milan, Italy. I went into a hotel that was run by the Zips, the Sicilian mafia guys, and I was told that. And I went in there, and I was confronted, and I managed to get out of the situation. But that was me. I mean, he wouldn't do. And and I went to Cuba. I mean, that was on me too. I mean, that wasn't really dangerous. I mean, it was. There was. I wasn't going to be thrown into Elmore Castle or anything. But and then like. We had a guy in Rwanda, Neely Tucker, a name you might recall. I mean, Neely knew a guy whose wife was a diplomat in Kigali, Rwanda. So we hired James Skaskill was his name. I'm probably murdering his name, but he took pictures for us in Rwanda. And I said something like, flip, like I don't go to any place where there's, genocide or whatever. But, I was for Pagan Babies, which was half Rwanda, half Detroit, which is kind of funny. But no, he'd never, I mean, that would never, that would, I would endanger myself maybe, but not.
And Gregg, were you paid by the publishing company, by Hollywood, by Dutch himself?
No, Dutch paid me.
Okay. And before we go, I want to touch on Justified again. What was your role in the original series, and to what extent are you involved in the new one that's coming out, where you said Tarantino encouraged Timothy Olyphant to come back and revive Raylan Givens?
Well, in the original series, they bought Fire in the Hole, which was a short story that Dutch wrote for Contentville, which was the first ebook publisher, which was funny because he didn't have ebooks. I mean, he wouldn't even know what it was. But he decided he would bring Raylan home to Harlan, and so he wrote Fire in the Hole, and then that was FX. And the production company, they decided to base a series on that, and so the pilot was basically Fire in the Hole, and then they started doing the series, and they invited Dutch to come on the set, and I was living out here by that time, and so we went to Santa Clarita where they were shooting. And everybody said, hey, write some more Raylan stories for us. And so Dutch, he as an executive producer, he felt, oh, well, I'm obliged to do so. So he wrote basically 3 stories that were connected into a novel. And as those stories were being written, I would send Graham Yost, the showrunner, I would send him pages. And we would go back and forth like that. And I would periodically, be invited to the set or to premieres, or, season premieres, or to, like the finale. I was there when they shot the final episode, which was really, really amazing to be in a situation like that. And so that was it. I mean, it was really I was, I was in the writer's room a few times, but never any, I was just a go-between, more or less, But
they named a character after you, didn't they?
They did. Deputy U.S. Marshal Gregg Sutter. That was.
Now, did he get shot or did he shoot somebody?
No, he didn't get shot, and I don't think he shot anybody. It's been so long, I can't remember. But no, that was in the second from last season that he was introduced.
Okay.
But as far as the new one is concerned, I don't have anything to do with that. I mean, what they did was they took Raylan alone, which a lot of people are a little, I don't know, the true super fans, they want to see Boyd Crowder, they want to see, Walt Goggins' character, they want to see the other characters, but it's just Raylan and a new bad guy from what they did. What it is a mashup between Justified and City Primeval, which was Dutch's 1980 novel, and set in the present. And but they shot it in Chicago.
That's Hollywood for you.
When they said that Michigan was no longer giving the great deals, so that was kind of, I don't know. They might have shot some back coverage, in Detroit. I just haven't been, I haven't been part of that. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just looking forward to. I think it's going to come out this summer. Okay.
And so to find out more about what you're working on and the memoir, we go to elmoreleonard.com.
Well, yes. I mean, you find out more about, just Elmore Leonard news. I'm really not talking about the memoir until I finish it.
Okay. Okay.
Hurry up.
But I do regularly post stories, for the fans who are, they're very loyal, and so I'll find stories, that every once in a while and publish them.
Well, Gregg, when that memoir is ready to go, we'd love to have you come back and tell us about it and tell people where they can find it. Colette is watching us on Facebook, says, interesting stories of a legend. I would say interesting stories of a legend from someone who knew him better than probably anybody. Gregg Sutter joining us, the leg man for Elmore Leonard. Gregg, thanks for making the time. Great stories, and we can't wait to see what makes it between bindings on your memoir. Do you have a working title?
Huh?
He doesn't want to talk about it, ML, until he finishes it.
Just tease us.
Well, the working title is, I mean, there was 2 working titles, but the one that's sort of, working for me right now is My Life Starring Elmore Leonard.
Not bad. Not bad. Okay. Hey, thanks, Gregg. We really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
On this lonely road, trying to make it home, doing it by my lonesome, pissed off, lonesome. I'm fighting for my soul. God, get at your boy. You try to go, God, fall back. I go hard on this lonely road, trying to make it home, doing it by my lonesome, pissed off.
Well, that's quite a story. I would like to see more Walton Goggins in anything,
he's so good.
But I think the new Justified will be pretty good. And City Primeval, like a lot of Elmore Leonard's books, it's just fantastic reading. He spans the decades, the genres, everything. Just a national treasure from right here.
We didn't talk about 52 Pickup and Roy Scheider.
If we're going to talk about 52 Pickup, I want to talk about Anne Margaret. I don't care about Roy Scheider.
You don't care about Roy Scheider?
Still a big...
and it's probably good we didn't talk about Be Cool. Wasn't that the... that was also John Travolta, right?
Yeah, that
Along
was
with Get Shorty.
That was the
follow-up,
follow-up,
Get Shorty.
yeah.
Was that based on a follow-up novel, or was that just a script?
Yeah, I think, There was a book. Yeah.
Okay, but... Yeah, no, Elmore Leonard, wow. And Joe Kidd, a great Western. He did so many great things. If you're looking to do some great things with your money, don't bother. You got to hire somebody who really knows what they're doing. So we humbly suggest that you turn to Luke Nowacki of Pinnacle Wealth Strategies.
Oh, yeah, January, big month for finances, right? You got to pay all those credit card bills.
Taxes coming up.
Quarterly taxes are due if you're one of those people. But taxes in March, so... a lot of finance stuff, a lot of decisions to be made. You're going to have to know how this is going to affect your current and future financial goals. So that's why we asked Luke Nowacki and his team at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. They can help you plan for all your financial goals, both today and well into the future. Call Luke today, 248-663-4748 for a complimentary consultations to see if your plan aligns with your goals.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Now, you probably do need some money right now, or maybe you're looking to purchase a home or refinance that home. Well, I've used David Hall of Hall Financial twice to do a couple deals. They both worked out great, and we think that he might be able to help you too.
Yeah, they can help you become debt-free. You can get a cash-out refinance from Hall Financial. It's a great way to use the equity in your home to pay off high-interest credit card debt. All it takes is a free 5-minute mortgage review with Hall Financial to get you and your family in a better position. Get the money you need right now with a cash-out refinance from Hall Financial. Call Hall Financial, 866-CALL-HALL, or chat with them online at callhallfirst.com.
And when you call David Hall, he'll make it all about lower rates and better savings.
Is that supposed to be your cue to Geek of the Week, or did you want
No. I just want to tell you, if you're trying to reach them, please make sure that our sponsors know that you found out about them from the show. And if you're trying to find a link to their website, you can find it on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we really appreciate it. One of the things that you can do to help the show, too, is just to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's been rebranded as Soul of Detroit. All you have to do is subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It's real easy. And when you get there, click the bell so you'll get a notification whenever we go live or whenever we have new content available. It really helps the show. We would love to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 328 right now. So we have a ways to go, but with your help, I know we'll get there.
All right. Was that your cue for Geek of the Week, or did you want to talk about other things?
Here's my cue for Geek of the Week.
And now, our Geek of the Week.
Right after we talk about the Michigan Supreme Court, we will get to Geek of the Week. Because speaking of Justified, we have justices.
What's the song today?
Oh, we're not to 7, 6, or 9.
You got some time.
We're not there
Go
yet?
back to bed.
Shawn's in a hurry. He's
you finish your nap.
No, I just have to use
Someone
the
get him a
restroom.
blanket.
He's late and in a hurry. There was a lot that came out last week, and one of the most unprecedented things you'll ever see. Basically, what happens behind the scenes in courthouses is largely a mystery. With Supreme Courts, it's incredibly obscure and Byzantine. One of the great pieces of investigative reporting you'll read is a book called The Brethren, written by Bob Woodward and Scott Armstrong about behind-the-scenes machinations.
Wait, are
of
you
the
the geek
U.S.
of the week?
Supreme Court?
We're not there yet. Go back
For using the word Byzantine?
No, it's in the dictionary.
Is that what you're doing? Okay.
I learned it from Dutch.
Oh, okay.
It was one of his encyclopedia entries, or encyclopedia, as some people call it. But excuse me. But we saw a peek behind the robes last week, where State Supreme Court Justice Richard Bernstein criticized new State Supreme Court Justice Kyra Bolden for bringing on a clerk who had quite a criminal past. And Mark, what did you make of all this?
Oh, I was just surprised at how hard Bernstein came out about it. Because what happened, Bernstein's 48. This law clerk's 48 too. So, similar age. But what this guy did, I think it was armed robbery when he was a teenager, and he fired at the police chasing him. Thankfully, did not hit anybody. But he went to prison. He went to prison for a long time. I believe he was in solitary for like a good 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he got out and earned his law degree. So he has a law degree, and I think he was clerking and working on, prison reform. And she hired him just to clerk, just to be a law clerk. I mean, he's not elected to...
Right, and they have multiple clerks and a lot of support research staff.
And that's really what they do. They do a lot of research. They might write the first... version of a ruling or whatever, but they do a lot of the legwork for the justices. And Bernstein came out and was really mad that this guy was hired, because he said they would have to oversee cases about the police. Now, why is it up to Richard Bernstein where this guy can work as a lawyer? That was my first question. What, he's not the State Supreme Court is so prestigious that this guy can't even clerk for him? But he can go do other things. I just thought that was a little weird. And if you're the kind, I would think Bernstein would believe in, prison as being kind of a reform. Rehabilitation, yeah, which this guy did. What he did sucks. It's bad optics for her to hire him, but she hired him.
Yeah, and he was 19, 20 years old when this happened, so it's not like he was just a wee one. He was old enough that he probably should have been pretty close to knowing better. But he did, to become a lawyer, you have to pass character and fitness before they'll give you your bar card. So he'd been scrutinized and had passed muster. From all accounts, he seemed to have put together a pretty good career.
He being Pete Martell is the guy's name. 14 years in prison, a decade in solitary confinement, finally paroled in 2008, in 2016 earned a law degree.
Yeah.
And he's enrolled as a doctoral student at the School of Public Policy at U of M.
And outgoing Chief Judge Justice Bridget McCormick jumped into the fray too.
Taught him, yeah.
And said, this guy was an extraordinary student. I wish I had hired him. Kind of wonder why she didn't. But what struck me about this whole thing is Bernstein and Bolden are both Democrats. They kind of ran together, and for one justice to criticize another justice is extraordinary.
It seems childish, doesn't it seem childish?
Well,
and if he had a problem with it, why not talk to her? Why blast it out in the press?
Yeah,
before you talk to her.
And the other thing is, so breaking kind of the black robe of silence is unheard of. But then when people brought up to him, you're like, well, you guys ran together on the same ticket. He said, well, that's the Democrats put us together. I'm not with her anymore. That's the point where we separated.
That's fair. I think that's a good point.
No, it is fair because the way we nominate Supreme Court justices and Attorney General candidates and Secretary of State candidates is bullshit. Basically, a small number of party loyalists pick who goes on the ballot. Same thing happens with university trustees and things. And obviously, they're picking some of the best and brightest because they haven't misled the people about how they run our universities, but that's a whole nother topic.
Well, you're right. It's horseshit how these people get chosen.
No, it's pretty sketchy.
So the system's the geek of the week?
We're not there yet. Go back to bed.
You can take the leak of the week if you want. We got the adults are talking here. We'll be.
I'm shocked you don't have an opinion on this.
We'll ring a bell for you in a minute.
I don't.
But I guess the way I come on the actual. So to watch the drama play out, and now Bernstein has since apologized, and Martell resigned.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Taking a shot at a cop, pretty bad judgment of any age, frankly. But I think if you do believe in redemption and paying your price, this guy did seem to do the work and put himself in a position where he could bring a perspective to some of these deliberations in the Supreme Court. I mean, he has a pretty unique perspective, and he might have been he could always be the one guy that everybody says, oh, there's Martell, turn him loose Martell again, where he becomes ignored. But it seemed like once he got hired, they probably should have given him a chance.
I'm just impressed that you believe in redemption now.
Shawn, your presence on this show every week is proof that I believe in redemption.
I mean? If you don't, then why do we have a parole system, right?
Well, no, I do, but I'm just impressed Mike does. It's nice.
I can see you haven't been listening. Perhaps it's the
I just want to be your leg man and then get invited on a podcast down the road.
Well, I know you're a leg man because you can't stop talking about Fellhauer's.
No,
I don't feel comfortable wearing shorts in this room anymore.
Sweet gams over there.
Not his thighs.
And that'd be an Elmore Leonard thing too. Sweet gams.
Just his calves.
Baby cake.
All right, Shawn wants us to move on.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited.
And what Shawn wants, he gets.
I do that?
That's known.
Dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
So this week's geek are Jake
Wait
Runyon.
a second. I
You're
thought
still
we
here.
did the geek, and
Why are you
now we're
still
doing
here?
room 7609.
No, what?
Oh,
Why
I'm
do you
sorry.
go back to bed?
I'm sorry.
You need to use the water cabinet. That's the room you should be.
Get out of here.
that
Go
you
to the
should be
bathroom.
Concerned with.
Maybe that'll energize you.
Actually, no. This is
That was God. You just gave me a very. I'm frightened. Now I'm frightened.
Why are you frightened?
This is a frightening look you.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
with Shawn's enlarged prostate. This might not be a long enough segment for him to.
Are we
empty
talking
his
about
bladder.
the water laser that they use to shave the prostate down? Is that what we're talking about?
What?
Yeah, actually, he can drill through cinder block.
It's new technology. Insurance doesn't pay for it. Medicare does, though.
Why? And which one of us wanted this to get wrapped
Thanks
up
for that
fast?
PSA.
Yeah, it's.
You put
yes.
the P in PSA.
Yes, on behalf of Saul Palmetto Caplitz, Shawn Windsor.
You're the Joe Theismann of this show.
Or Theismann.
Yeah, the yes man.
By the way, how do you not make
the non
Stetson
sequitur
Bennett the Heisman Trophy winner? All the guy does is win Heisman's. I mean, national
Because
championships.
he's not the best player in college football.
At 5'10", he wins national championships, and Georgia didn't win national championships.
Did you guys? That reminds me. There was a great clip this morning of him throwing a pass to a receiver that was at least 30 yards wide open.
I've never seen a wide receiver that open.
And it said the caption said, "What quarterback in the NFL can make this throw?"
Well, last time,
by the way,
I felt bad for laughing at that, but
why?
it was
That's
pretty,
hilarious.
It was pretty funny.
And Stetson Bennett is 25 years old. He's older than 19 NFL quarterbacks.
so he's halfway to the pension plan. But the only other quarterback I saw throw to somebody that wide open was J.J. McCarthy in Columbus when he hit that
Johnson,
one dude.
yeah.
I mean, I was like, what did
this
everybody?
is way more open than that.
They think it was halftime?
Did that, and maybe we'll talk about this later in the show. I don't know, maybe not. But did it, as a Michigan
that
fan,
covers our options.
As a Michigan fan, did it make you not embarrassed, but a little uneasy to watch TCU lose 65-7?
No, not why would it? Because lost.
TCU beat Michigan and the transitive property
They
of college
month.
football.
They had a month to prepare for them, and they prepared much better than we did against them. But yeah, the transitive property, big deal. Does it make Ohio State look better because they almost beat Georgia?
Of course it does.
Well, Michigan beat Ohio State on their field. I mean, when you daisy chain them all together, it's just kind of annoying because each game is played once, right?
That's true, but by Ann Arbor logic, Ohio State is better than Michigan because they lost to Georgia by less than TCU did, and TCU beat Michigan, right?
Right,
I mean,
that's kind of how it goes.
I feel like Goodwill Hunting. I need a chalkboard to try and.
All I know is that if you're a Buckeyes fan,
but those are all in neutral fields.
If you're Buckeyes fans, you're like, okay, yeah, we had the best team, and it didn't happen.
Well, if that's how you want to judge yourself by the
National
game last night. No, I mean, an Ohio State or a Michigan fan judging their team by the game that was played last night. I don't know. I don't see what you can get out of
Teebs
it.
wants us to get to Geek of the Week, and what Teebs wants, Teebs gets. As I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by a man with an rapidly expanding bladder, if not rapidly
you're still
expanding
here.
consciousness. And so much for my resolution to be brief. Jake Runyon and Chase Comiskey. I was trying to be brief, and we get
They're Geeks of the Week. Okay, what's the song?
Yeah. So these guys are professional fishermen, okay? And last year, they got busted.
Oh, are these the walleye guys?
Yes, they filled the insides of 5.
I made them Geek of the Week.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, you did.
What? The walleye guys?
I'm pretty sure you did. But go ahead.
So they cheated a walleye tournament?
Yes.
Okay, good.
The fish were caught, and after the tournament director, did I really name these? Okay, well, there's some guys who cheat at cornhole too. They're Geeks of the Week. Damn it.
Shawn got his wish.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Teebs.
Why is this so low?
Awesome.
There we go.
See you again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Yeah, I came here from the doctor where I had my annual physical, and they asked me some questions. Is there anything that has happened to you that would indicate that you're experiencing depression? That I wish that it happened just before the doctors. I'm very depressed if I pick the same Geek of the Week twice.
Well, nobody would have remembered if I didn't say anything, so. I could be wrong. It could be a totally incorrect correction.
I wish Gregg Sutter was working with me here. I think
he could have done the research on it before he chose it.
He never got left hanging. Anyways.
Oh.
Film noir,
I've heard this
detective
in forever.
movies, Elmore, Elvis. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you Declan McManus with Watching the Detectives.
Wow.